Red Dead Redemption 2 is not only a masterpiece, but also a huge financial success. It has sold over 61 million copies. And yes, sometimes with the discount, but still it's billions of dollars we are talking about here. And let's not forget about impressive $273 of pure profit that Red Dead Online brought to Rockstar. Anyway, since nowadays Rockstar cares mostly about money and profit, it's safe to say that Red Dead Redemption 3 will be released. Not anytime soon, but we will see the next game in Red Dead Redemption series for sure. And the main question is, who will Red Dead Redemption 3 be about? Let's take a look at 5 main options that Rockstar has here. I've placed them in order from least to most likely. On place number 5 we have a story about Jack Marston after events of Red Dead Redemption 1. The year is 1914. Jack has just killed Edgar Ross, revenged his father, but he became an outlaw, so his redemption story begins. There are a few big reasons why it might be a great idea for Rockstar to make Red Dead Redemption 3 about Jack Marston. First of all, the setting. World War I begins around the same time as Jack kills Agent Ross. The world is changing extremely fast. There are new technologies, airplanes, automatic weapons, also cars that are not as pathetically slow and bad as we see them in Red Dead Redemption 1. And yes, it's not a Wild West anymore, but actually Red Dead Redemption 1 was set in 1911, which is also not a Wild West era at all. By the way, Rockstar can choose any year for Red Dead Redemption 3 to take place from 1914 to beginning of 1930s, because from narrative point of view it would make perfect sense if Jack will just go and hide in Mexico for the next 5 years, or 10 years, or even 17 years until 1931, when he will be 36 years old. You know, exactly the same age as Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2. So RDR3 can show us the world of bootleggers, mafia, and famous bank robbers like John Dillinger or Bonnie and Clyde. The next reason is that Rockstar will have complete freedom of action if Red Dead Redemption 3 will be about Jack Marston, because it will be a completely new story with new characters. They can hire new actors, which might be really important for Rockstar because they always try to keep everything about their new games in secret. I mean, some characters from previous parts might return as a pleasant surprise. For example, we might meet Sadie Adler or Charles, but still it would be a completely new redemption story. And yes, I know that a lot of players would like Red Dead Redemption 3 to be about Jack Marston, but still probably Rockstar will choose some other option, and here is why. If Red Dead Redemption 3 will have fast cars, airplanes and machine guns, it will be too similar to GTA. And online mode for Red Dead Redemption 3 might even compete with online mode for GTA 6, and Rockstar don't want any kind of competition like that, because as we all will see soon, GTA 6 Online will be a huge money-making machine for Rockstar. But which is even more important, Take-Two, company that owns Rockstar, already has a franchise about that era called Mafia. And again, Take-Two is not interested in such competition. But there will be no competition at all if Rockstar will decide to make Red Dead Redemption 3 about completely different era, the very beginning of Wild West, even before the events of Red Dead Revolver, somewhere after the end of Civil War. Among Red Dead Redemption 2 characters, only Uncle is old enough to become a protagonist in such case. It could be interesting because he quite often mentions how tough he was back in the day and everyone is laughing at him. There is even a theory that Uncle is a Red Harlow from Red Dead Revolver, but it's just a theory. Anyway, it could be a plot twist if we will play as young Uncle in Red Dead Redemption 3 and we'll see that he was indeed a deadly gunslinger. But still, I would personally prefer to see a completely new main character and a completely new story, almost unrelated to events of Red Dead Redemption 2. In this case, Rockstar will have absolute creative freedom and will tell us new stories about new characters from true Wild West era. And they can give this game vibes of classic spaghetti westerns, you know, like the good, the bad and the ugly. But I'm afraid that modern audience is not that familiar with such movies, and which is even more important, a lot of players will be disappointed when they will see no familiar faces from Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Redemption 1 in Red Dead Redemption 3. So I think think that a new character in a completely different era is an interesting option, but unfortunately, it's unlikely that Rockstar will take such risk. Next option is to make Red Dead Redemption 3 about some familiar and beloved characters like Charles or Sadie Adler, or maybe even both, you know, just like in GTA 6, two playable characters, male and female, and show events between the end of epilogue of Red Dead Redemption 2 and the end of Red Dead Redemption 1. We can travel to Canada with Charles or to Mexico with Sadie Adler as a part of her bounty hunter's job. We can meet a lot of familiar faces from both Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Redemption 1 because most of them are still alive at that time. We can find out details of what happened to Dutch, Bill and Javier between Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Redemption 1, and also finally we can find out how agents found John Marston. But which is even more important, a lot of Red Dead Redemption fans want to see Sadie Adler as a main protagonist in Red Dead Redemption 3. There are a lot of possibilities for interesting story and character development here, because we saw Sadie getting her revenge, but not her redemption. On the other hand, such story could feel more like a DLC to Red Dead Redemption 2, DLC that we unfortunately never received, but still, it's really likely that Rockstar will choose some different story for Red Dead Redemption 3, especially since there are so many unanswered questions about the past in Red Dead Redemption 2, like what happened between Dutch and Colm O'Driscoll, what happened in Blackwater, and so on and so on. And I'm pretty sure that it's just teasers from Rockstar. They are planning to give us answers to all these questions in Red Dead Redemption 3. One way how Rockstar could answer all these questions is to make Red Dead Redemption 3 about some side character, someone we know from previous games but who is not a member of Dutch Wanderling's gang. For example, Black Belle or Landon Ricketts, or again, maybe both of them, why not? Such famous and tough gunslingers look like a perfect candidates for a role of a main character in a game like Red Dead Redemption 3, and Rockstar could make something extremely interesting this time, especially if they will choose Landon Ricketts as the main protagonist. They might start the game in 1880s and show how Landon Ricketts becomes a legendary gunslinger, and during this journey we might meet Dutch, Hosea, Colm O'Driscoll and maybe even young Arthur. We might help them with different cases and learn more about the early days of Dutch Wanderling's gang. Then time jumps to 1899 and we see events of Blackwater Massacre, disastrous robbery which led to events of Red Dead Redemption 2, because it was rumored that Landon Ricketts also was involved in Blackwater Massacre somehow. And apparently the massacre was one of the reasons why few years later Ricketts decides to move to Mexico and start more peaceful and quiet life. And again, as a players we might see that there are no really peaceful and quiet life for people like Landon Ricketts, as he becomes an unofficial lawman of Chuparosa City. And at the end of the game we might witness events between 1911, when Landon Ricketts returns from Mexico, and 1914, where he quietly passed away in his sleep. And Rockstar has a lot of interesting options here. For example, after finding out that his friend John Marston is dead, Landon Ricketts finds his son Jack and trains him. I mean, somehow Jack Marston went from this in 1911 to this in 1914. Anyway, Rockstar could show us the whole timeline of Red Dead Redemption saga through eyes of one character, answer all questions, fill all gaps, and additionally show more interesting adventures of a cool gunslinger. That's why I really like this option, but unfortunately there is one big problem. Landon Ricketts peacefully dies in his sleep, and it's not something that main characters of Red Dead Redemption usually do. So I guess it's more likely that Rockstar will choose someone else to be the main character in Red Dead Redemption 3. Some of the gang members, and will show us events that happened before Red Dead Redemption 2, so it's gonna be another prequel. A lot of people believe that it would be Callander brothers, Davey and Mac. I personally have better suggestion, but let's talk about them first, because it's possible, since both of them are getting shot during Blackwater robbery and die, which looks like a reasonable ending for Red Dead Redemption game. So it could be a story about Mac, tough and violent outlaw, and his brother Davey, drinker and poker player, what they were doing before joining the gang, how they met Dutch Wanderling, and most importantly what happened in Blackwater. And since in both RDR 1 and RDR 2 there was an epilogue, in Red Dead Redemption 3, after Callander brothers die, there will be an epilogue as well, in which we will be playing as Arthur and we'll find out what he and Hosea were doing during the events of Blackwater Massacre, because they were not involved in a robbery. By the way, one really interesting twist is possible here, because we don't actually see how Mac is dying, and none of the gang members sees it. We only know that Mac Callander is dead from the words of Agent Milton, but maybe he's lying and Mac is actually eating mangoes on Tahiti because he safely ran away, or maybe Mac betrayed the gang, and that's how Pinkerton agents found out about the Blackwater robbery in the first place. Anyway, it's possible that Red Dead Redemption 3 will be about Davey and Mac, but there is even better way how Rockstar can tell us the story of Dutch Wonderland's gang, and it's to make Dutch Wonderland himself the main protagonist. But you might say, wait, Dutch is such a terrible person, no one wants to play as this character. And that's the beauty of this option, because Dutch was not always like this. He was a hero, he was a real leader, he had ideals. For many years he tried to change the world until at some point he gave up. So playing as Dutch and seeing how and why this transformation happened might be extremely exciting. Rockstar has a unique opportunity to create a really powerful story here and show us how Dutch created the gang, how he met Hosea and Arthur and other gang members, about his relationship with Colm O'Driscoll and what happened there, and obviously about Blackwater Massacre and why Dutch killed that innocent girl. But it's not necessary should be only about Dutch. We might as well play as young Hosea and even young Arthur. I mean, game might have multiple playable characters at the same time, like GTA 5, and instead of telling us one character's story, tell us 3 different stories that are closely intertwined. Give us answers to most questions and complete Red Dead Redemption saga. In my personal opinion, making Red Dead Redemption 3 about young Dutch, Hosea and Arthur is just the best choice that Rockstar can make. But I guess different players have different opinion. Let me know yours in a comment, and meanwhile, I suggest you to go and watch the video about the real traitor in Red Dead Redemption 2. You can see the link to this video on your screen. With that being said, stay safe, stay healthy, goodbye.